Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Life Reassembled. Today we're going to be talking about our emotions. If you're anything like me, this has been the gamut. You've either overemphasized your emotions, or you've kind of hidden them, been shy about them, or even suppressed them in some way. So today we're going to dive into not only just how we can express our emotions properly, we're also going to be diving into allowing ourselves to feel the negative emotions in order to get past it to the other side. We have to remember that emotions will not hurt us and that they're telling us something. And there's also a time and a place to process our emotions. Welcome to Life Reassembled. This is the podcast where we learn how to reassemble our lives. I'm Julie Renee. I'm a life coach specializing in trauma recovery and a speaker. Together, we're going to be exploring what it really means to reassemble our lives on the rock after we've spent our entire lives piecing it together on sand. Here, we're going to talk about healing the mind, renewing the spirit, and organizing the parts of our lives that were once overwhelmed by complete chaos. Each episode is a space for reflection, faith, and practical steps for living with peace and intention. So, take a deep breath with me. Settle in with some warm coffee, and let's begin reassembling our lives, piece by piece, together. We have to remember that our emotions are part of our design. God gave us emotions. We are allowed to feel. We have every right to feel what we feel. Even if it's not the right timing to feel it, there's a reason why our body is going through what it's going through. Now, what we do with that emotion is what really matters more than anything else that we do. So a good, simple example is anger. It is not bad to become angry. The Bible tells us not to sin in our anger. It never tells us not to be angry. Now, God was angry, and God has every right to do what he wants to do with his anger because it's righteous, and he knows what to do with it properly without there being any negative consequences afterwards. When we get angry and we choose to sin through our anger, there's lots of consequences. If you've ever thrown something, maybe it broke or it was scary for somebody else, or if you experience somebody throwing something or being angry or violent, it's rattling. And so there's a reason why we don't sin in our anger, because we're not in the right emotional state to process our emotion. And sometimes we're in a position where we're very sad. We want to cry, but we're just not in that place where we're able to do so because we need to be strong for somebody else in that moment. There might be times where a loved one is in the hospital, and when you're with them, that's not the time to express your sadness and cry. And it's, of course, not to be suppressive about that. We'll talk more about that. It's really interesting that your instinct is to be there for them and how to aid them in whatever they need. And so even though you can still express your sadness, it's really difficult to be a full-blown crying, exasperated, all that you really want to express in that moment, because it's just not the right time or place. It's usually in the car, right, on your way home, where it just comes out, where you are sad and you're able to grieve. There's a reason why we don't suppress our emotions. So it's good to understand our emotions. It's good to feel our emotions. But sometimes it's not the proper time to process our emotions. It's not the proper time to fully engage in our emotions. Usually this is done by ourselves. It's with God. It can be with other friends, especially in regards to something that's really elated or something that you want to share that's deep. And it's okay to share with other people. And like if you're going to a concert and there's all these, you're surrounded by thousands of people and you're all experiencing this emotional state. So none of it's bad to have these emotions. It's just a matter of how we place them in the right time. Now, this does not have to get complicated. However, if your emotions are irregular and they're sporadic and they're happening at the weirdest moments and you're not understanding why, it's most likely because you need to process something that you're suppressing. Let's start there before you start going on any medications, before you start talking to any doctors. Now, I'm personally not a doctor. If you do need to seek help and you feel like that's the right direction for you, please do that. I'm not suggesting that you don't. What I am suggesting is that you consider trying this if that sounds like the right way to go. Again, talk to a professional, but you understand also that professionals have a job to do as well. I never thought I really suppressed emotions because I was so emotional, especially my teenage years. I was erratic and I was loud and I would cry and I would be dramatic. So I never thought that I was suppressing any type of emotions because I felt like I wore my emotions on my sleeve. However, come to find out later, way too late, and we've talked about this before, I avoided conflict. That was the emotion I did not enjoy. And so any type of social pressure or peer pressure or people pleasing or any type of unresolved conflict that would come up, even just a small amount, I would suppress that feeling and I would immediately go to a pleasure point in my brain. So I would try to find something to replace that pain with pleasure in some way or in another. Now, I know that we all have done this. I even do this now. If you're finding yourself bored, that feeling, that emotion, you might go to your phone and start scrolling. If you're tired or you want to if you're tired, maybe you're looking to be social and you want to be with your friends, or you want to do online shopping or whatever the case may be. So sometimes suppressing our emotions is not only just annoying or difficult, it can also be destructive. It can get us into really bad habits. It could be a trigger point of, hey, I'm feeling this emotion. I don't like this emotion. So let me go turn to this certain vice. It could be a vice, and get that pleasure so that the way I don't have to feel the negative anymore. Does that make sense? We have to make sure that we're acknowledging our feelings. It's always the first step with anything else. Like AA, you guys are on it because it's so true. But this applies to everything, being aware of it. And then the Bible tells us that we have power in our tongues. If you think about it, when God spoke, it was. Let there be, and then it was. And then he looked at it and he saw that it was good, and then he rested. There is a system and an order to how we do these things, and we are created in his image. So if we have a feeling, we have an emotion, and we recognize what it is and sit with it for a second, especially if it's like a negative emotion, something that we're uncomfortable with, this is going to help expand your capacity to handle harder things in life. And if you're going to be working with me, we handle hard things. My implementation program is about stepping into your future self. And with that, you're going to be going through hard things. You're going to process hard information. I'm never going to ask you guys to do anything that is physically or mentally harming to you. Of course not. But we have to acknowledge that our brains are with our bodies. And even if we're experiencing something that's uncomfortable, as long as we're in a physically safe place, it's okay to process. And the best way to do it, guys, is honestly with God. He is our shield and our comforter. He protects us from the harm that could come. And so I know that there's certain thoughts you don't need to entertain. There's certain thoughts that are entangled with the dark forces, right? But there are thoughts that are just ours that we want to just process and figure out and organize just how we need to be able to think. And so we'll talk about that in a minute in regards to the thoughts and how to organize that to help with our emotions. But I want to get back to the suppressing real quick. Now, we talked about not sinning in your anger. And it's okay to be angry, but we have to realize that we have to recognize that, hey, we are angry. We do not like this. We feel threatened. We feel possibly offended. We feel taken advantage of. There's different things that are going in that process, especially when it comes to anger. And that's usually the one we have to tackle the most because that could be the most damaging to other people. So that's why I'm tackling anger first. And if you're coming out of an abusive relationship, you understand fully what anger looks like. You've seen the full wrath of it. And please don't get hard on yourself if you're experiencing similar anger issues, because the only thing you've seen is how to process anger the way they did. And so you might inadvertently start copying how they processed anger, even though you don't want to do that. It's what your environment was. If you grew up with an alcoholic father and you understood how horrible that was, you might end up being an alcoholic yourself. It's really interesting how our brains go for the familiarity, even if it's not good for us. And it's hard to recognize it while you're going through it. So we have to be prepared. And I'm all about being organized and prepared ahead of time. This is how we reassemble our emotions, guys. So when it comes to something negative, especially when it comes to anger, where it can be harmful if we act upon our anger, before we're angry, when we're in a good state like now, hopefully you guys are in a good mood right now, chilling with your coffee, come up with a game plan now that works for you in your situation. And think about what triggers you guys the most. What is the thing that will set you off in a second? What gets you the most angry? Think about it. Now, that event is not happening in this moment, so you can kind of play it out a little bit in a safe place. And instead of going to your fallback, your habit, your go-to that's comfortable, even if it's harmful, let's rewire it, change it up, and do it where you're calming yourself down. Honestly, the best thing to do is to breathe when you're angry, because you're going from fight or flight mode. You're going from survival mode. You're going from the lower brain mode, the primal mode. And now we're acknowledging we're angry, and you're breathing. Honestly, we tell this to the simplest minds because it's the simplest thing to do. And yet, who's doing it? As full-grown, rational, successful adults. How often are we breathing to calm down when we're angry? We need to calm that emotion down. And then we need to name it. I am angry right now. I am frustrated in this moment. I do not like X, Y, Z. And it might kind of sound silly, especially if you're talking out loud and there's other people around. But at the very least, talk to yourself about it. So you're acknowledging that you're feeling this way. You're acknowledging why you feel this way. And then what you need to do is, okay, what can I do now to move forward productively? Because at that time, you've already calmed down enough where your brain can start being creative and process things properly, because you're not in that emotional state anymore. So again, you're not suppressing your anger, you're acknowledging it, you're calling it out, and then you're moving forward properly in the right tone. Now, give yourself some grace, because acknowledging it is the first step, and you're not going to be perfect at it most likely the first time you do this, right? But the more that you acknowledge it, the more that you practice, the more that you are in that direction, give yourself kudos. And you know what? Sometimes we cheat on our diet, right? Don't give yourself a hard time, because that's in an emotional state also. If you're angry at yourself for being angry, you're just adding more anger to it. So the best thing to do, we've talked about this before, is to forgive yourself and love yourself through your mess ups, through your craziness, through your scenarios. If God loved you so much that he would send his son while you were sinning, while you were being disconnected from God, while you were saying, F you, God, and he still loved you enough to die for you, we have no excuse not to do the same for ourselves. We are not above God. We need to lower ourselves and humble ourselves to forgive ourselves, even if you have to forgive yourself in that moment. And if you're able to ask for forgiveness to the other people around you, even if it's right then and there, and they're most likely going to be forgiving and loving and caring, especially if you're surrounded by the best people in the world, people who actually love you and want the best for you. And if you're not in that environment, we need to have another conversation. If you're in an environment where that love and that support is not going to be there, and you feel like you have to suppress your emotions, then please go back to my previous episodes. You might be in an abusive relationship. Check that episode out. Or you might be in an abusive environment. This can also apply to a positive feeling. There was a time recently that I was so excited. We were actually looking for something. We couldn't find it. We're searching. We didn't have much time to find it. And then I found it. And I was loud. And I was so excited. I'm like, woohoo! And I was being myself. I was being elated. And then I got scolded by my friend. And they're like, hey, we might have some other people sleeping. Like, what are you doing? And I am usually very aware of other people's presence, and I'm very considerate of that. But it was like one of those things that we didn't know if they were there or not. And so my friend was acting as if they were, and I was acting as if they weren't. So that's why I allowed myself to be elated and excited. And I was so mad at my friend, to be completely honest, because I was like, you are the one who was looking for this. I took it upon myself to help you find it. I'm the one who found it. Like, I'm not trying to get the praise for it, but let's celebrate together. Like, why are you not celebrating? Instead, you're scolding me. And I had to walk away. I said, okay. And I walked away, and I had to deal with that feeling straight away with God. And I was battling a couple of things in that moment. So I knew that the devil was trying to get in there straight away. Man, he's seriously, like the Bible talks about, he's like a roaring lion, just walking back and forth, just waiting for a door, right? And he uses his cohorts to open that door. And it was just a misunderstanding. It was a mistake. It just happened. It wasn't like I felt like we purposely opened a spiritual door or anything like that. But nevertheless, there was something there. And I knew the devil was trying to get in me and giving me these thoughts automatically over my friend. Like horrible thoughts. And I don't think I love them, right? And so these horrible thoughts were coming to my head, and I was like, whoa, I don't like this. That's not true. And because I was emotional and I was upset, it took me a minute to recognize that these thoughts were there, because it was just like firing off. Boom, 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 boom. And I just started speaking into it. Even though I wasn't feeling grateful, I wasn't happy, but I started speaking into it out loud, because I was able to walk outside. And with that, I said, I forgive my friend. I love them. And I just started talking about, okay, so this was what happened. And I just started laying out facts, just black and white facts. This is what happened. This is what we were looking for. They thought this. I thought that. It's a bummer that they weren't excited when I wanted them to be excited. I was just like laying it out, and that like released that tension. And then I was able to forgive them, even though they didn't necessarily do anything wrong. And I didn't necessarily do anything wrong. We just both were just kind of clashing in that moment. And they were highly stressed. There was a lot going on in their life. So I had to acknowledge that too. It wasn't like an attack against me specifically. It was just an added stressor that they didn't need at that moment. And so it was hard. It was humbling, and just having that time apart. And then I just started praying over them. And then when we came back together, they ended up apologizing, or we had a hug, and it was just amazing and beautiful. And God was so wonderful just to repair a moment that could have turned into something really, really ugly, really fast. And I'm so grateful for that. So again, I didn't suppress the feeling, but I definitely walked away from the situation, because I could have stayed and started an argument and started lashing out. That was an option, obviously, that I had the free will to do that. But I didn't want to be that person. That's not who I am. And so I'm not going to practice those things. But I was still acknowledging that I did not feel good in that moment. I did not like that at all. I didn't like the feeling. But instead of suppressing it or going to my phone or going to some type of vice to like feel better about it, I came to prayer. And I had to lower my pride in it and acknowledge that both of us were not at fault. It was just bad timing, a misunderstanding, and we could definitely move on. And I'm so thankful that they came back and apologized, and we worked it out quickly. And I praised God while they're talking to me. So I give you these examples on purpose because I want you to understand the full reality of how processing emotions is properly. Now, in that instance, the last one, I had to do it straight away because I did not want to have anger build up inside of me. And there's other situations where you might have to wait a minute to be able to actually process it properly. There's conversations I've had with people where I'm not agreeing with them, but it makes me kind of sick to my stomach. Like, I don't like this, but I don't really know what to say. I don't know how to respond. I need to go in prayer with it. So we finished the conversation, and it might be a couple of days before I talk to them again. And that's good because it gives me time to reflect, to give it to God, and just to talk it out loud. And so I'm constantly talking out loud to God about my emotions. And this is not new. We learned this from David, who had the heart of God. And he was so expressive of his emotions, and yet he did not allow his emotions to overtake him. Here he is running for his life for years from somebody trying to kill him. The king, his father-in-law, this man that he respected and loved and cared for was trying to kill him. And David had an opportunity to kill him. There was an opportunity, and he had to make the decision. And he did not kill the king because he was anointed by God. And David respected and loved God more than he wanted to stop being chased. David was an emotional man, and he's out dancing, getting in trouble by his wife because he loves the Lord so much. He's singing praises to God all the time. Like half of the Psalms is just songs, him singing, praising God. He was emotional. And in Psalms 42, he's acknowledging his emotions and he's giving it to God. Starting in verse 5, chapter 42 of Psalms. Why are you downcast, my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. My soul is cast down within me, therefore I remember you. From the land of Jordan and Hermon, from Mount Mizar, deep calls to deep at the roar of your waterfalls. All of your breakers and your waves have gone over me. By day the Lord commands his steadfast love, and at night his song is within me, a prayer to the God of my life. I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why do I go mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? As with a deadly wound to my bones, my adversaries taunt me, while they say to me all day long, where is your God? Why are you so downcast, my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. David acknowledged where his heart was. He acknowledged reality. But he reminded himself to trust in God, to hope in him. We'll praise him again. And in so he's actually praising God then and there, even though he's not feeling it. He's sad at this time. Maybe he's tired. He's hungry. And so he's acknowledging his feelings and giving it to God and reminding himself, like, this is temporary. We will praise God again. We will be happy again. We will be able to be joyful again. And later on, he was. And he was crowned king. He didn't have to worry about Saul chasing him anymore. Then he had to worry about other guys. There was other issues. But that's how life is, right, guys? We can't ignore our feelings and expect the problem to go away. We have to understand that our emotions themselves will not hurt us. And the more that you speak out and you acknowledge, hey, I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable. Could you imagine? I suppressed so much emotion, guys, that was uncomfortable. I don't want to be here, but I didn't say anything. I don't want my ex in my car. I don't want him here. Why is he here? I'm allowed to have these feelings and emotions and express them. And do it properly, guys. Don't be mean about it. I know that's like the hard for me. I'm extreme. I'm either like really loud or really quiet. And so this season of my life, and I'm talking about since I left my ex for the last couple of years, this season I'm really learning that middle ground. When to be loud, when to be quiet, and really tuning into that discernment. I don't get it right all the time, but I'm more aware of my emotions and I'm more okay with them. And I'm thankful for them because they're telling me there's something wrong or there's something that I love. I'm listening to my emotions better. But I'm not acting them out if I don't need to in that moment. You may be aroused. That's an emotion. It might not be the right time to express that arousal. You guys understand? There's a time and a place, and it needs to be done properly, and it needs to be done in the right environment. If you guys are interested in learning more about this, check out the programs, links in the description below. In these programs, we really dive in deeper into getting out where you are, where you want to be, and really just laying out the truth. And this is just between you and God, if you acknowledge it, at the very least with you. And something about putting things in writing, something about having the right questions asked, something about having a guided direction where you're still in control. You're always going to be in control of where you decide to go with that. But having the acknowledgement and the resources and the tools is so powerful. If you're feeling trapped, because that was the emotion I felt when I was with my ex every single time. Didn't matter if I was with him or not with him. Anytime that we were together, I'm putting quotes there because that was always random sometimes. Anytime that we were together as a couple, well, I was a couple, I felt trapped. That was the emotion I felt. And that's a scary emotion because when you feel trapped, you feel like you can't escape. You feel like you can't go anywhere. It's like all of a sudden every tool you have to leave doesn't exist anymore. The feeling of being trapped is horrible. I'd rather be enclosed with the wings of the Lord because that doesn't make me claustrophobic. That doesn't make me feel trapped. It makes me feel loved and protected and secure. But if you're suffocating under anybody, if you're trapped under anybody, if that's the emotion, there's resources and tools to get out of that because that is not safe. And I want you guys to be safe above all. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to talk about, guys, is timing our emotions with writing it out. How do we reassemble this? So the good news is that's where the programs are helpful because it's set aside time that you put together where you're having the right questions asked. And then within that, you have freestyle. You know, I have the room to write your notes, but please feel free to have another notebook available. And there's something about physically writing, if you can, versus typing things out. It's just it hits a different thing in your brain. And there's actually studies done about this. When people do talk to text, or they type things out, or they write things out, it triggers a different part of your brain. And physically writing something out is actually the most rewarding in the long run. So I encourage you guys, if you can, print out the programs and then have a notebook ready for extra notes, because the questions are specifically put together a way that I believe the questions that I put together in the programs go really deep, and they're the questions that I needed. And so that's why they're there. That's why they're asked. But a lot of times too, I find that a lot of my students, they are encouraged and inspired by these questions, and there's more there. It's like this plug that's finally been released, and like this flow comes out, and they're just like writing freestyle for pages and pages and pages. And that's just over like one or two questions. And it's so releasing and freeing and liberating. And then they can always come back to the next question the next day or 2 days from now. That's what I like about these programs. It's up to you when you want to do them. It's on your time schedule. I purposely structured everything that I offer to be on your schedule, even with my coaching. So yes, it's going to be a certain amount of time, but I work with your schedule and what that looks like. You'll hear it all the time on YouTube. Oh, I offer a 6-week course or a 5 months course, or whatever the case may be. That's great. But I believe in everything being customized. But how I put that together and when I take people on, I'm very in control over. Because I want to make sure that I'm working with you in the best capacity that you need. Because every person is different. So having a 6-week structure might not work for you. I don't want you to feel obligated to have everything down within 6 weeks, or whatever the case may be. Writing down your emotions is so imperative. There's also parts of that too where you're just doing a thought journal. So there's 2 things I want to talk about with this. The first one is you can't always write when you want to write. You can't always process thoughts when you want to process thoughts. Having scheduled times to do this is amazing, guys. Amazing. First thing in the morning, last thing you do before bed, close to that time range. Those would be peak times. Those would be ideal times. But you have to be careful because everything out there is like, do this first thing in the morning and right before bed. So it depends on your schedule, of course. But within that schedule, I'm really hoping that you guys are finding time to write. And if you can, do it in the middle of the day too. So sometimes you'll get a great creative thought, or you'll get an emotional thought, or you'll get something that you were like, oh, I really want to tackle this, but not right now. So have a system in place today. Create a system today, if you do not have one yet, of how to write it down to come back to later. And put it in a place that you know you'll be able to get back to later. So let's say your morning time is your devotional time, prayer, journaling, meditation, all that fun stuff. And that's the time that you want to process your thoughts or emotions or have your creativity time. Great. Where throughout the day are you writing these notes as you get them throughout the day? Because you know the morning time is not the only time that you're going through this. This is just the time that you're spending to express it and having it come out. But there's times throughout the rest of the day that it's coming into your brain. And so we need to have a place that is the most consistent for you in regards to being able to come back to it when you need it. For example, don't write it on the first thing you see and then you don't know where it's at and then you lose it. And then that comes with frustration and confusion and trying to find it. No, have it in the same place, something that you can have with you at all times, and then being able to write out your thoughts. And then have space for that. Have a space for, hey, these are my emotions that I'm feeling. Have a place for your creativity. And then also have a space where you're just writing down every single thought you have. Give yourself a timer. Like, I want to do it for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. And just every thought that just comes to you, just sit there and write down every thought. Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. And acknowledge that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. Emotions come and go all the time. That's why we have to be so careful about the words we use, because if we're not taking care of how we assemble our words with our emotions and our thoughts, we could easily, inadvertently identify things, identify other people, identify ourselves in the wrong context because of how you are in that state of mind. There's a difference between consistency, compounding, personality traits, characteristics versus a temporary emotional state. Does that make sense, guys? I want to make sure that we're reassembling our emotions properly and in a healthy way. And by doing so, you guys will be able to move forward with so much more integrity, with so much more power. And let me know how it goes, guys. If this is all new to you, tell me, oh my gosh, this week I was acknowledging this feeling and this emotion, and it changed everything because I didn't react in it. I didn't go straight to my phone. I didn't go straight to the fridge. You guys want to start tackling your habits and you want to start tackling your goals. This is the direction to go. It might seem minor, but you don't realize how much time and money and energy is wasted when we go to our emotional grab bag. I'm feeling this negative emotion. I don't want to feel this negative emotion, because our brains are wired to what? They want familiarity. They want dopamine hits. Our brains want our bodies to be happy at all times. And so we can't always provide that for our brains or our environments. Finding contentment is very difficult, but it's available. We can decide to be content without compromising. Stay connected with us on our Facebook community. Reach out to me personally on Instagram DM, and I would love to chat with you guys. All the descriptions below. Make it easy. And I will talk to you guys next week. Love you. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation on Life Reassembled. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who is also rebuilding their life, because none of us are meant to do this alone. To keep growing with us, join us on the Life Reassembled Facebook community. Check out our free identity blueprint on our website, or learn more about our coaching and upcoming courses at reassembledlife.com. That's re-assembledlife.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Life Reassembled for daily encouragement and resources. Remember that healing doesn't happen overnight, but every small step forward is part of reassembling your life.